No. You got your one show. No. Mm-mm. You only gave me one shout out in one of your shows last week. No. Sorry. It's one demanding cat. So, last night we were talking with our good friend Henry Pietras, who's I referred to him last night as being our Bill Nye the Science Guy, because he knows a lot about science. He's very thoughtful and adept at gathering in information and digesting it and fitting it all together. So we were talking about Iceland, and we didn't get around to talking about the geothermal springs. We did talk about them as far as the generation of hydrothermal energy. But apparently, like, what were the two cities that you mentioned, Melissa?
Durango, Colorado.
Durango, Colorado.
And Jemez, New Mexico.
And Jemez, New Mexico.
And parts of northern Utah.
And parts of northern Utah, which apparently have some of that same type of thing, those springs that are set far away from everything, and they're that way intentionally, apparently. Why is that? Why do they why don't they want people to go there?
Well, because people could get injured because of the super hot water. But in the case of geothermal, in the place we went to for a hike, they're actually generating electricity and power on a volcano. It's there's the Earth's crust in that area is very thin, so and the temperature is actually very hot. So as water goes in.
So you mentioned is this 300 to 400 degrees, or is this hotter?
It's between 300 and 400 degrees, best I can tell. In the case where we went, it's actually it was a recently active volcano, and actually my daughter tells me that the area where we were, there was roughly about 5 miles worth of land that was added to Iceland just recently because of the activities of the volcano.
That much in that short a time?
Yeah.
You hear about that in Hawaii, that there's.
Well, remember that just a couple of years ago when a volcano was very active in Iceland.
Yeah.
It prevented airplanes from flying in the area.
Yes.
Well, it's because of that volcano.
And it created, how much land did it create in that much? In
that area, it's roughly about 5 miles. You can see it. I mean, it's flat. It's going into the water, and it's steaming. There's a lot of places as you walk where the water is bubbling, so it's hot. It's boiling effectively.
Yeah. So similar to what's happened in Hawaii is happening in Iceland.
Oh yeah.
Now, you walked up, and was it a touristy kind of quick stroll to get to these hot springs?
In that case, it was some effort. It was a 3-mile hike one way, so 6 miles in one day.
Why not make parking closer to the source?
They could. My wife tells me that there was a place supposedly closer, but we knew of this. There was like a rest area where you could go in. Mm-hmm. There were restroom facilities there, and there's no restroom facilities once you go up to the mountain.
Okay.
That we knew of, and I thought we went pretty much to the end. There were like 3 places where you could stop for dipping or taking a sauna in the river. The water is absolutely clear, and interestingly, there's 3 stages. There's 3 places where you could stop. We went to the 3rd one, and at the bottom, actually, we met some people from the U.S. Happened to be from Fairfield, Connecticut. Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah, go figure. And they were the only people we spoke with. But oh yeah, well, we also spoke with some Polish people. There's a
good shout out to John McAllister that we met out in, I don't know, New Mexico. All of a sudden, there we were, Kristen and I, and there they were, and he says, "Are you that realtor from Bethel?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, okay, you look familiar." And there you go.
Yep.
And 2,000 miles away from home, and you meet somebody.
Well, we knew this couple we met. They're from Fairfield, and I told them that I was going to be there on the 30th, by the way, this Saturday. Yeah. Because this Saturday, Fairfield does an Earth Day celebration, mm-hmm. and they have one of the best in the area.
That's coming up on
They're actually the best.
Saturday the 29th?
It is a Saturday, it's the 29th, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Quick shout out to Fairfield, Saturday the 29th.
Yeah. The person that started, Larry Cayley, was a selectman there, and he's still active in helping to run it. He's no longer the lead on it, but he still helps, and I help him for several years now. We've, you know, I've gone over and helped out as well.
So the water. So
Yeah.
this water, obviously wasn't 300 or 400 degrees that you were going into. Otherwise, you would have brought your lobsters and had
Yeah.
dinner right there.
Yeah. So what happens is that the water that comes off the glaciers mixes in with the warm water, and then you know, if you find the right spot, it will be temperate enough so it's comfortable.
Do you have to
stay
guess? Do you have to guess? How do you know what spot's the right spot?
in. Well, apparently it's quite permanent because there are actually like the equivalent of what we would build here, like decks. There's like 3 different decks.
Oh, okay.
And maybe,
Okay.
you know, maybe like 50 yards long, and you can go in and be
Okay, so
guaranteed that it's nice and warm.
So it's clear that you're going into an area that's warm, but not too warm.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Although there are places, we went over a little bridge and you could see boiling water coming out. Okay. But give it time, you know, that boiling water, as it touches the cool earth,
Okay.
it
Separate.
will find us. You can't
moderates
find
itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
It buffers.
Okay. So it was a fairly long walk
Yep.
from where you parked up there, maybe to I don't know why.
Well, no litter.
Okay.
This park is open 24/7. As it was getting dark, we came down the hill, but people were still going up. But it was absolutely spotless, kind of muddy, but you know, I didn't see any litter. I mean, people were actually very, very respectful.
Can you stay there overnight?
Yeah. Yep. There's no sign saying, you know, proceed at your own risk or any of that stuff. None of the insurance stuff. None of the cautions. It was, you know, it was just there.
They just figure people are going to be intelligent enough to
Yeah.
know not to stick their hand into boiling water. That's good.
Well, at the hot spring, it said, you know, warning, you know, it's 100 degrees here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, 100 degrees centigrade, which is 212.
Yeah. That'll do it.
Yeah. But that coming out was kind of muddy, okay? But as that sediment settles out over a distance, all that water is absolutely clear.
By the time it gets to the spot where it's 90 degrees, it's...
Oh, and by the way,
settled out.
between Keflavik, which is the airport, and Reykjavik,
Yeah.
there is a stopping place called the Blue Lagoon. And the Blue Lagoon is a hot spring that people go to.
That sounds nice.
For warm baths, like saunas and so on. And,
Yeah.
we stopped, okay, but we tried to go in, but you have to make your reservation days ahead. So even if you arrive, okay, on the day we arrived, we tried to get in, and there were no slots available.
All the way till the time you left.
Right. So those who want to do this, make sure you reserve your spot at the Blue Lagoon days ahead before you leave.
Okay, and then they may not tell you that. Hopefully, if you book a flight and a trip there, hopefully your travel agent will know that. But do a little research on your own, apparently, to make sure that you're going to be able to actually go to some of these places that you want to go to. You mentioned...
well, we did stop at the Blue Lagoon, but not to go in for a dip. And by the way, interestingly, people would take the, I guess, calcium carbonate, or the sediment that was on the bottom of the Blue Lagoon, and they would take that mud and put it on their face.
Oh, like a mud pack.
Like a mud pack, yeah. We saw a lot of people there. I was wondering why, and then my wife explained why.
So it's kind of like you mentioned in another show about buying a train ticket from point A to point B. I forget whether it was Poland or Germany or Czech Republic or Slovakia, one of those. And you bought it the day of the trip, the day that you took it, and it was like 3 times as much as if you had purchased it the day in advance.
Yeah. It's true. It happened to me in Germany. And on my return from Prague to Germany, a ticket would have cost me 30 euros to go from Prague to Dortmund, which is near Dusseldorf. And if there were other modes of transport, but I just decided to bite the bullet and pay the about 100 euros to you know, on the day of my
so
trip.
on the day was 100. The day before was 30.
Yep.
So obviously the locals know to buy.
Well, you know, it's the same game that's being played with airline tickets.
Yeah.
You know, supply and demand. But I think they don't even look at demand. They just look at, you know, timing.
Yeah.
So if it's urgent and you need it, then the pricing is higher.
Then they can jack the price up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's variable pricing as opposed to fixed pricing.
Okay, so it's not necessarily gouging. It's gouging only because they don't. Well, this is the same thing here when you buy your ticket at the kiosk at the railroad station rather than buying it on the train. If you buy it on the train, if you're counting on the conductor to be there to sell you the ticket, take the cash, store the cash. It's a lot less expensive to buy it before you get on the train.
Yeah. Oh, well, it used to be when I traveled to New York City, it was $2 additional.
Okay,
So,
that's still something.
You know, so
Yeah.
you know, if you were running real late, you could, you know, you could get a ticket, but pay an additional $2 service fee.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Okay.
On Europe, the thing that I observed, and especially in Poland and Prague, if you have a ticket and you buy it, you know, with your phone, you can get a scan code, and then you show that scan code to the conductor. He reads it, and you're all set.
Oh, okay. That's good technology.
Yeah. And the other thing they do is in Europe, ticket-wise, is they'll sell you the ticket. Whatever you ask for, they'll sell it to you. So if you're looking for, you know, senior citizens discount, they'll sell you a senior citizen discount. You know, they're not going to look for documentation that you are of age.
Yeah, if you sort of kind of look the part.
No, it doesn't matter. You know, the checkpoint is really not at the point of sale, but at the point of control.
Oh, okay. So that's when they'll take a look at you and they'll know you're 20 and not 60.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, you could ask, you know, you could buy it, but then, you know, if you got found out, then you pay a penalty.
If you don't pass muster, they're probably going to hit you with the rest of the cost and maybe a ticket on top of that.
Yeah. So you know, those are the kinds of processes that I'm interested in seeing. How do people do, you know, day-to-day things? What are their processes compared to ours? Mm-hmm. And you know, hopefully learning from what they do, in many cases better than we do.
Well, the more places you go, the more good ideas you can absorb.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that, you know, we have this idea that if it's not invented here, it's no good, or, you know, people really have no solutions, and in reality, in many cases, they have solutions that we haven't even thought about.
Well, the cultures have been there a little bit longer than American culture too, so it's, you know, you've got to believe that they've learned more over 1,000 years than we have over 300 years.
You would think, but it's also a mentality about, you know, looking at best practices. Mm-hmm. You know, we push science and the science.
Describe what best practices are.
Well, best practices is something that businesses do all the time. I did it at a very large food and later on tobacco company. Mm-hmm. Where we looked at process, we looked at how we do things, and then we would reach out to see how are people saving money, how are companies saving money, and then try to put, first of all, we would document the process.
Yeah.
Then we would try to see how we could semi-automate it or use automation where appropriate, or take things out of the process to save money for the long term.
So take something that somebody else was doing and then adapt it.
Now, best practices
tweak it a little bit here, a little bit there, and see if you can apply.
That's one way to do it within your. I mean, you know, there's two ways to make money in a corporation. One is to earn it through sales. Yeah. The other is to lower your costs. So that's where you get into best practices.
And come and outgo. Okay.
Okay, and there are actually a whole bunch of consulting companies out there who do that. They study your process and they make recommendations as to how to improve the processes and therefore save money for the long term. Okay. One of the big things in any process is standardization. You know, like computers, for instance. There's a whole big company in Fairfield called the Gartner Group. Mm-hmm. They were started when the PC was just coming around, and the idea there was to look at best practices, and in computers, they called it total cost of ownership, which is looking at a computer from the day you buy it, actually even before that, to the way you put it into the grave, which is when you recycle it. Okay?
Whether that saves you money, whether you get something back for it at the end, or whether it costs you to get rid of it.
You look at, you know, anytime you go in and visit a PC, okay, to add memory, for instance, or add additional disk storage, or add you know, a hardware component to a computer, that takes labor and effectively time, and it's an expense. So if you think about the whole life cycle and walk back to the beginning and say, well, what if we add additional memory on day one? What if we put in all these components that our employees are most likely to need? Okay, so you put in a machine that is likely to work for everybody 80% of the time. Okay, then effectively over the life of the machine you reduce the visits to the machine, and that's
the downtime.
Saving costs.
So you don't have downtime where, oh my God, it would be better, we have to upgrade our machines.
You don't.
You upgrade them in advance.
You do it on day one.
Yeah.
Not only that, but when you bring in a machine, you create an image. An image has all the feature sets that you need to run your business.
Mm-hmm.
You test, the image is tested in the lab, and once it's tested, you clone that image all over to every PC that comes into the business. Okay? So on day one, that machine has all the licenses needed. It has all the feature sets that needed. You plug it in and it's ready to run. If anyone has experienced a new PC that they buy, there's a lot of work involved for it to be usable. Okay? Whereas corporations look at buying 10,000 machines with the same image, a standard image. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. So for the long term, you have a machine that's ready to use on day one, and for the long term it stays there for the 3 years or whatever the life of the machine is.
Whatever your anticipated life is for your product, for your machine. Okay.
And then you bring in a new one when needed. So the idea is to reduce the human labor.
Stanislaw out in the audience he's holding up a card that says enough of the machines. Take us back to Poland.
Okay.
We want to hear more about Poland, about your town that you went to in your previous tour.
Well, Poland was the last part of my trip. I went to Prague. I went to Dresden, where a friend of mine had a lot of influence. So we had a lot of exposure to what he did when he was there before World War II, when he lived there. And now he's taken us on a art tour, basically, of Dresden. And that's another conversation. But in Poland, after Dresden, I went to visit relatives.
You got to find that conversation on YouTube and Facebook. It's out there. We had that conversation. If you want to hear more about Dresden, look us up, YouTube and Facebook, Progressive Soup.
So after Dresden, we went to visit my relatives, which is in Dortmund, which is very close to Dusseldorf.
Yeah.
And then we flew over to Warsaw. My mom and I, who's 85 years old, my mom and I visited Warsaw, the old part of town. Then we went to Krakow and visited the old part of town.
Is that what I would refer to as Krakow?
Yep.
That's the town, okay.
And then we went to visit our relatives near Katowice and spent a few days there and went back to, and on our return to Warsaw for a flight home, we stopped over at a village where I lived, and my parents lived for about 12 years. It was a community of about, now it's about 4,000 people. So it's a whole bunch of villages. It's not one, you know, like towns. Towns are like 20 miles away. There's 2 towns that are 20 miles away from this small little town. And the villages are organized in most cases in like east-west orientation. There's one road, and the houses are mostly on one side of the road, and then perpendicular to the road are fields.
So you've still got agriculture.
There's agriculture, and this village that the main village was started in 1403. There have been I actually read a book.
1403.
Yeah,
I'll take you back.
Show that book.
Yeah.
This
Monographia
Chastari. And this village, this area is actually composed of at least 10 different villages. The main part of the main village is that one, the Chastari.
to study.
And so they have the community center, they have the church. The church there was, that's the 7th church in the same spot. Because in some cases it was rebuilt, in some cases it was burned, in some cases it was destroyed. But the current
one,
since 1460.
Over 600, 700 years it's been destroyed and rebuilt.
Yeah.
Those times.
Yeah. And during World War II, it was used as a storage facility, but also as a jail for the locals. Yeah.
A multi-purpose church.
Well, and also an interrogation facility, and also in some cases, people have gotten shot and killed.
Okay.
During World War II by the Germans.
Oh, okay.
I didn't realize it, but my village, you know, I thought, you know, I'm thinking of Poland as what it is now.
Yeah.
So the border, the German border now is very far away. I mean, it's hundreds of miles away from where this village is.
Yeah.
But at the time, during World War II, the German border was like 20 miles away. Okay?
So Poland expanded and Germany...
Well, the borders were different.
Okay.
Okay? Actually, Germany was closer to the village. So the borders were different because there was a lot of German influence over the years. You know, Silesia is, you know, people in Silesia, which is Śląsk, near where I was born, that's a coal mining area. Oh. And it's mostly influenced by Germans. It was mostly influenced. A lot of people speak German, and many after World War II moved back to Germany.
So Germany obviously has, you know, huge coal reserves that they don't really tap into anymore because they have alternative
remember now
energy.
It's Polish. This is a Polish area.
Okay, but how does this compare to Germany? Are the Poles still mining coal?
This area, even though it was huge coal mines, and actually the consequences of those coal mines now are that in some cases where I was born, the buildings have collapsed.
So huge sinkholes.
Yes, because you know they did not put in, you know, they didn't reinforce the walls as they were taking coal mines out. So in most cases, there's almost no functional coal mines. And because the coal was also used to make steel, and there's almost no functional steel factories as well.
Yeah, steel is, I guess, China supplies.
Yeah.
I know they supplied all the steel for the infamous Dakota Access Pipeline. You know, Trump was going to, you know, build American jobs by allowing the companies to bring in Chinese steel.
So now a lot of this this area is now turning over to what we do with old buildings, which is, you know, commercial stores and you know, and I guess factories, but you know, small factories for making little.
You see a lot of that in Pennsylvania, where they used to have all this kind of stuff going on, and now towns just pretty much disappeared, and now they're coming back with combined multiple-use buildings, housing and stores and whatnot. Yeah. That allow them to reuse to recycle buildings and reuse them as something a little different than a factory.
So there were in this area over the years there were, you know, only a few families. Most of this land in this village was owned by the kings or his delegates. Yeah. You know, there was always struggles of power. There were almost no Jews. Around World War I, there was there were 2 Jews in this whole area, which then had about 3,000 people. Now it's about 4,000. My cousin, who gave me this book, he more or less grew up in that area. When we left our farm, we leased our land, and then over time, my uncle, who then was a miner and had to retire because of illness due to asthma incurred through mining.
Typical coal mining injuries.
Yeah, so he took over the farm.
I guess they call it.
And he and his wife took over the farm, and my cousin was, you know, lived there. I think he may have even.
So you had family that are still there.
Yeah.
Was there anybody else in the village that you remembered? That remembered you?
Yeah, one house over was my best friend. He's still there. Nothing has changed except for the structure of the house.
And how many
years? It's now concrete.
50 years?
50 plus, yeah, since 65.
Wow.
So 52 years. He's still there. You know, they're still doing the same thing, which is farming. Now it used to be horses. Now they have one little tractor.
That's got to be pretty exciting for both you and them to see somebody and know who they are 52 years later.
And we're still trying to remember, remember people, because a lot of people in this book are mentioned. Okay, the principal who wrote this book remembers me, at least according to my cousin, says he remembered me. Obviously, he died since then, but he was born in late 1800s. And the principal was a really well-respected man. He spoke German, and he spoke French, and he spoke Russian. And he taught those languages in my school. As
I guess most people in Europe speak multiple languages because the countries are a little closer together than the United States.
Yeah.
But
the interesting thing is that we keep lately in the press we've been hearing about 6 million Jews, 6 million Jews. Okay. Very sad thing, but in reality, 12 million people died. Okay, 12 million humans died in concentration camps. 22% of the Polish population died during World War II.
I guess anybody that was threatened with that they thought sympathized with the Jews, helped the Jews, they went right along with them.
Yeah, other people died, but when I read the articles, I get very upset because we're only talking one segment. Okay,
gypsies.
Gays.
I mean, there was a long line of people that Hitler was after.
Communists.
Yeah.
And also, most people living in that area during World War II ended up getting shipped out of that area. And the lands were given to the Germans to run.
We're going to continue the discussion. We're fading out. We're going to continue the discussion. If you missed anything, that's because you weren't here. Continue.
Well, so the lands were given to Germans to run, and then they used locals to help. But in most cases, the people who owned the farms got shipped out. They shipped out all the priests. Only one ended up coming back. Most of them ended up dying in Dachau.
In Dachau?
Yeah.
Okay, that was important.